It's January of 1847 in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. On a mountain slope deep in the wilderness, a terrible scene plays out. A party of 13 people stumble through the 12-foot snowdrifts, crudely fashioned snowshoes clinging to their feet as they go over the snow and around the trees. The majority of them are suffering from snow blindness, barely able to see more than a few feet in front of them. Upon closer inspection, an even more horrible image emerges. Various chunks of meat, frozen rock solid, are slung on people's backs, tied to their clothing and dragged in the snow behind them. But this is no animal meat. In our first two-part episode ever, we'll tell a cautionary tale of human endeavor and failure, hope and despair, and greed and ambition. The story of the Donner Party chronicles the harrowing tale of the ill-fated group who set out for the promised land of California in the spring of 1846, only to meet disaster in the snows of the Sierra Nevada the following winter. Buckle up, folks. This is quite the tale. I'm Jake Storielli, and this is Laughs from the Past.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Laughs from the Past, Season 8. This is Episode 6, and as you heard there from Jake Storielli, it's a two-parter, The Donner Party. Great intro, Jake. I don't think you've done that voice before.
No, and it's not a great voice. Again, right before I started that, I kind of got excited. I was like, yeah, Sam Elliott, been watching Scottie Pippen on the MJ doc. But yeah, my voice just doesn't go down there.
You got to talk from your belly. All the
Talk
way
from your
down.
belly.
Down there is where the
Belly
sound
to belly.
makes. Barbaric. The Donner Party. We were just saying before this that when I moved to California, my high school friends were like, you don't know who the Donner Party is? And I was like, no, I don't. But to be fair, we lived by Donner Lake. I think I spent 4th of July on Donner Lake, so it's part of their everyday lives, or, you know, it's right in the area there. But what your familiarity, you said, was Patch Adams?
Patch Adams, he makes a joke with a skeleton, and I'm like, yeah. Again, you think of the knowledge of a young Snake Storielli. I felt like I was missing out on a Robin Williams joke.
Yeah, it's crazy that you even pulled that up now.
Well, yeah. Again, think about how I was raised. Whose line is it anyways? Robin Williams, Mike Myers. So yeah, and that was basically like, why is that a joke? And it's like, oh, there are a bunch of people that cannibals. Like,
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mom. She's just sitting in the kitchen having her son ask why. why are you asking about the Donner Party right now? Kid can barely read. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's definitely an interesting it goes into colloquialisms and stuff like that, but there's got to be a lot of historic colloquialisms that, I'm sure there's Northeast names that I know off the top of my head, just because it's like, oh, you spend a weekend in Massachusetts and, oh, that's where Paul Revere's buried, and that's, this, that, and the other thing. Where on the West Coast, I'm sure there's stories like this where, again, I know nothing about the Donner Party, just that they ate each other.
Yeah. Oh, geography in high school, at least when I was in high school, was so bad. The kids in California, I didn't know what Yosemite was. I saw it and was like, Yosemite? What's that? Right. I was 15, and they laughed in my face. But at the same time, they thought Connecticut was in the Midwest. They had no idea where Connecticut was at all. And I'm like, well, okay, we're balanced then there. But regional geography, I feel like, or the U.S.
Well,
is
that's
terrible at teaching geography.
yeah, and I'm kind of not even into geography on this one because you're right on that. But I feel like there's a people aspect to that too that you just learn about and hear about through osmosis.
Yeah, I wonder if they're the most famous cannibals. Interesting. There's that boat thing that they tried to find the North Atlantic Pass or whatever, and they ate each other. AMC did a show on them, but that's something I guess I don't want to do too much research on. Most
Okay.
famous cannibals.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because aren't there still or
I mean,
like
like one-time cannibalism,
right,
like
right, right.
last resort,
Exactly.
ditch effort cannibalism, not part of our
Thank you.
culture.
Thank you for phrasing it that way because I was going to phrase it poorly.
Okay. All right, let's just get into it. During the 1840s, the United States saw a dramatic increase in settlers who left their homes in the East to resettle in the Oregon Territory or California, which at the time were only accessible by either a very long sea voyage or a daunting overland journey across the American frontier. The draw of the American West was due to a number of reasons, ranging from California's burgeoning economic opportunities, freedom to live in a fully Catholic culture, or inspired by the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that the land between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans belonged to European Americans and they should settle it. Manifest destiny is kind of, you read a bunch of stories about how Americans are like ignorant or like kind of, I don't know, assholes. Like manifest destiny is like,
I'm living it.
right there.
Yeah, it seems like two almost incredible words back to back, and you're like, whoa.
It's heavy.
Manifest destiny. And then yeah, when you read the following line, that's like they believe the land was theirs, and it's like okay, it seems like someone smart made up two cool words, and everyone else clinged on to it.
I mean, it was pretty once they realized how much land was in between the whole country and it went to the Pacific. It was key to make sure you own that. Otherwise, you just invited, a potential threat of a country to share this continent with you.
Got to cover your six, yeah.
That's why the way that Jefferson or the way that Jackson got the land, Jefferson? Or am I blanking? Got the land in the Louisiana Purchase is badass. He just wrote, Spain had it, and then Spain gave it to the French because they were like cousins, Napoleon and the guy in Spain, and they were fighting. And then, why am I blanking on it? If it's Jefferson or Jackson? It's pissing me off. Anyway, whoever it was wrote to Napoleon and said like, hey, you can keep the Louisiana territory, but if you try to ever use it or send your men there, our Navy will just kill your Navy before they arrive. So you could just give it to us. And that would be easier. And Napoleon was like, well, oh, fuck. Okay. Can I just charge you for it? And he gave it, there was like very little cost. But that's how we got the Louisiana Purchase. Pretty badass.
One less thing.
Jefferson.
And there's it's definitely the Louisiana Purchase is one of the first things you read in school, and you're like, oh, it's like, yeah, the Louisiana costs $5,000, and you're like, okay, and it wasn't even Louisiana; it's like the whole like left side of the country,
the Mississippi, really,
yeah,
basically the plains and all that. But yeah, all right, let's go into it. While most wagon trains followed the Oregon Trail route, a future major in the Confederate Army and fellow westward migrant, Lansford Hastings, published The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, identifying a potential quicker route. As an alternative to the Oregon Trail standard route through Idaho's Snake River Plain, he proposed a more direct route to California across the Great Basin, which would take travelers through the Wasatch Range and across the Great Salt Lake Desert. The route would be dubbed the Hastings Cutoff. Damn, what a dummy. I think we have a picture of the cutoff here, and it's, if you have any sense, like, I don't know the official way that this guy made this cutoff, but even my minimal knowledge of, like, Lake Tahoe, you know? Wait, hold on. I have a different map than we are supposed to have.
Oh, okay.
You see it?
Yeah, so this one goes above the Great Salt Lake. The other one goes below it.
The other one goes even higher above it. So,
okay.
So they're going.
Well,
they're going below Salt Lake.
Cutoff?
What's that?
The red is the Hastings Cutoff, right?
I don't know. This is dumb because we have a different map.
Yeah, 2 maps. Album coming out soon.
It looks like the Hastings Cutoff is below Salt Lake, the fucking Great Salt Lake.
Nailed it. Wasatch Mountains, Wasatch, very beautiful, very beautiful. If you're a traveling type of person, get out there sometimes. It's a great area, and I don't know. I had a nice laugh in there because I thought it was funny. Lansford Hastings and The Emigrant's Guide to Oregon and California sounds like the most boring book in the world.
Well, it also sounds like it's not that well researched because his fucking map sucks. Like, look at this. So you see the map? I have it on screen now. Looks like the purple route, and for anyone that's just listening, once they got to the Utah and Idaho border on the west side of Wyoming, the regular route went north. It went through Idaho and up, this purple. And the Hastings Cutoff, they were like, let's go through the Great Salt Lake Desert. But that's where all the mountains are. We've driven through this, Jake. And that part of Nevada they want to go through, that's fucking miserable.
Yeah, it's a beautiful drive, but it would be terrible using their technology to get through that part of the country.
Yeah, remember we drove through it, and my windshield wipers on my car didn't even work, and that was scary.
Yeah.
So, can't imagine not even having a car. The Reed and Donner families. On April 6, 1849, 9 covered wagons left Springfield, Illinois, on the 2,500-mile journey to California. The 9 wagons contained 32 immigrants. Quick math. How many per wagon? Migrants.
9 goes into 32. That is 3.5 people per car.
It's great. Everyone had their own space.
Yeah.
The originator of this group was a man named James Fraser Reed, an Illinois businessman, eager to build a great fortune in the rich land of California. The successful Reed was determined his family would not suffer on the long journey, as his wagon was an extravagant 2-story affair with a built-in iron stove, spring cushion seats, and bunks for sleeping. This dude had an RV.
James Fraser Reed. Yeah, man, this is James Fraser Reed. I think we've, definitely driven past it before. I'm trying to picture where it is in this beautiful goddamn country. But there is an RV museum. And if James Fraser Reed isn't mentioned on it, then that is a big pile of horse shit.
That is. I'm trying to Google like look at these wagons. You see, like, how could they possibly have a 2-story wagon?
Right. This is kind of the standard wagon that everyone pictures. To have a 2-level with a stove, man.
Hey, I don't even get it. 2-story wagon. Maybe like, is this one super big?
The RV Hall of Fame and Museum is in Elkhart, Indiana, right along I-70, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Well, someone needs to lay out that for me so I can figure out what it all means. A built-in stove. Taking 8 oxen to pull the luxurious wagon. Reed's 12-year... What's that?
I-90 for those
I-90.
wondering about the RV museum still.
Check it out. Taking 8 oxen to pull the luxurious wagon, Reed's 12-year-old daughter, Virginia, dubbed it the Pioneer Palace Car. 12-year-old daughter dubbed it that. Along with Reed's families were the families of George and Jacob Donner. George Donner was a successful 62-year-old farmer who had migrated 5 times before settling in Springfield, Illinois, along with his brother Jacob. Obviously adventurous, the brothers decided to make one last trip to California. One last trip, huh?
Yeah,
5 times.
That's kind of horseshit. That's I think it turned into one last trip, but listen to the RV they just had. I don't know.
No, they don't know. That was the Reed's RV. The Donners
right,
didn't
I
have
know
it.
the Reeds have that, but if you think George is done after 5 times,
Unless he's just going east to west.
I think the bigger note here is he's 62. We've been doing these Wild West stories, and it's like, oh, Wild Bill Hickok, he lasted till he was 39. These dudes lived a big time life. Using the Louisiana Purchase math, the Donner Bros are like 114 years old.
They're pretty old. Maybe they're grizzled vets. That's why they're doing it so often.
Dude, 62 without modern medicine, I think these guys were pretty not good.
He looks like, I don't know what he looks like.
This guy's never had an Advil.
That is why. Oh, I think penicillin might have been around or something like that at the time.
Okay.
We got a lot of pictures of him here, but he doesn't look 62 in any of them.
Not even close to 62.
No.
Like that one on the left there, I feel like that's the most famous one, and he's looking older there, but not 62.
He could be 62 in this one. But yeah, good looking guy. Normal, average looking guy. All right. Reed had recently read Hastings' The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, and this new route enticed travelers by advertising that it would save the pioneers 350 to 400 miles on easy terrain. However, what was not known by Reed was that the Hastings route had never been tested. Written by Hastings, who had visions of building an empire at Sutter's Fort, Sacramento, it was this falsified information that would lead to the doom of the Donner Party. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, I have the most elementary knowledge of that terrain just because I've driven through it in my car and used my own eyes and brains. And I could tell you that route isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Did this guy get arrested? The one who made this guide?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know.
Okay. We have a nice picture here. I don't know who this picture's of. Does anyone know who this picture's of? I'm guessing that's Reed and his wife. They look happy.
That's the guy we just saw for Donner's picture.
Is that Donner? Yes. So I guess that's Donner.
But it's
maybe no one knows.
Margaret Reed. Tough.
Very confused. All right. Next section. Incorrect information. Fateful decisions.
There we go.
The wagon train reached Independence, Missouri. I believe that's the home of Jesse James. About 3 weeks later, where they resupplied. The next day, on May 12th, 1847, they headed west again in the middle of a thunderstorm. A week later, they joined a large wagon train that was camped on Indian Creek, about 100 miles west of Independence. Along the entire journey, others would join the group until its size numbered 87. Encountering few problems along the trail, the pioneers reached Fort Laramie, in modern-day eastern Wyoming. I've been there. Just 1 week behind schedule on June 27th, 1846. Considering the difficulty of the journey, things were progressing quite nicely for the group. It was great. Off to a hot start. The movie version of this, it's like a montage, and they're just like going and chugging and singing songs, sleeping, cooking in their stovetop in their RV, and having a blast. Picking up any hitchhiker. Yeah.
87 people, man. Like, that's, I mean, you got to wrap that around your head a little bit. That's, a college football team.
I mean, I'm guessing they all had their own wagon and shit, and they're just like,
They're
oh,
like-
you have a new route? We'll follow you.
These are early hippies.
Yeah. They just were, maybe it's just another group that didn't want to have a leader. No, dude, I bet they sold everyone on this new route. Like, everyone they saw that was heading west in a wagon, they were like, which way are you guys going? They're like, oh, you got to come with us. We're going this new quick route.
We're saving you 350 miles.
You didn't read The Immigrant's Guide to California and Oregon? What are you, dumb?
Gotta read it.
At Fort Laramie, though, James Reed ran into an old friend from Illinois by the name of James Kleiman, who had just traveled the new route eastwardly with Lansford Hastings. Kleiman advised Reed not to take the Hastings route, stating that the road was barely passable on foot and would be impossible with wagons, also warning him of the Great Desert and the Sierra Nevadas. At the same time, though, Reed would receive conflicting information. Jim Bridger, it's a good name, ran a trading post nicknamed Bridger's Fort that operated right at the start of the Hastings cutoff. Parties that chose to stay north and follow the traditional Oregon Trail would miss this post. So stay north. But for groups that chose to cut south and use the cutoff, his fort would be a crucial place to resupply for the long journey through the mountains. Knowing full well that his trading post would fare substantially better if people used the Hastings cutoff, he told the party that the shortcut was a smooth trip, devoid of rugged country and hostile Native Americans, and would therefore shorten their journey by 350 miles. Water would be easy to find along the way, although a couple of days crossing a 30 to 40 mile dry lake bed would be necessary. It's a good tale for any children we have listening, Jake, of always trying to understand what's in it for the person passing you advice. What was in it for Kleiman, James Kleiman? Nothing. He had nothing to gain from them not going the route and going the other route. Zero. He was just passing along advice. Bridgers, on the other hand, what's to gain there? A lot of business.
Yeah.
He's got some motive. If only Reed and Donner had some critical thinking foresight in their brains.
And I think it's more of a, more businessy. I mean, hey, if you're running a business or something and business ethics 101 right here. Bridger, man, the Donner Party gets remembered as this crew of cannibals. Jim Bridger is just a name that gets forgotten and like kind of in an all-time bad guy situation here.
Yeah. Pretty bad guy. And the guy who wrote the guide himself.
A little bit. This James Reed just got through it. So, in theory, the guide kind of worked, but definitely some fibs.
But yeah, he said he got through it on foot without any wagons. Oh, dude. Right. You want to see what Jim Bridger looks like? Because, he's just a guy you don't trust. Yeah. He's like an old guy with a crooked mouth.
So the most crooked. Jim Bridger might have invented the term crooked when someone's like amiss.
Look at that mouth on this dude.
Straight crooked.
That guy. You cannot trust this old man.
No, that was a huge mistake.
That was a fatal mistake. Damn. Okay. Well, moreover, on July 11th, still at Fort Laramie. How long have they been at Fort Laramie for?
Yes.
A month? 3 weeks. The pioneers were met by a man carrying a letter from Lansford Hastings. The letter stated that Hastings would meet the group at Fort Bridger and lead them to his cutoff While this letter made its way into the group's hands, a letter with a very different message did not. Dude, so Bridger and Hastings are like a 1-2 punch here. I mean, I think Hastings was an investor in Bridger's store.
I think it's a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If that pass works, Hastings can probably flip more books. This guy has his, supply station set up. I think if both are successful, they're successful together.
Journalist Edwin Bryant had set off with the group initially, hoping to write a story about what the journey westward entailed. When the group stopped at Fort Laramie, Bryant, seeing as he could make a quicker pace than the wagon train, decided to push on to Fort Bridger. However, seeing the first part of Hastings cut off after leaving Fort Bridger, Bryant became concerned that it would be difficult for the wagons in the Donner Group, especially with so many women and children. He returned to Fort Bridger to leave letters warning several members of the group not to take Hastings' shortcut before continuing on himself. But none of the party would receive Bryant's letters warning them to avoid Hastings' route at all costs. In his diary account, Bryant wrote that he believed Bridger deliberately concealed the letters and chose not to pass them on, a view that would be shared by James Reed later in testimony. So again, the thought process is that this man duped all these people into their death for the benefit of his store.
I, for one, am shocked.
I think you're right, dude. I think like this guy invented the
term crooked.
Look at that. Can't trust him. I don't even know what his hair's up to. Does he have bangs, or is that
one of those? I feel like Instagram or the Snapchat's got one of those filters, and it like does the dimensions of your face. Like this guy would be like, oh, invented the word crooked.
It's not a trustworthy looking guy. So they had a lot of warning. I didn't really know that of this story. I didn't know that there were people warning not to go, and there were people like hiding those warnings or like lying to them.
Yeah, they didn't get a lot of warnings, but there were warnings.
Yeah, like I always thought they were dumb. Like they were dumb. And maybe they were naive, but they really got played pretty hard. Like as a published guide. Back in the day, you would think you can trust that. But anyway. While misleading information would lead the party down the ill-fated Hastings cutoff, internal struggles over leadership would also plague the group. Most of the younger men in the group were European immigrants and not considered to be ideal leaders. Because James Reed had put the original group together, he had taken de facto leadership for the first part of the journey. However, although he was older and had military experience, his autocratic attitude had rubbed many in the party the wrong way, and they saw him as aristocratic, imperious, and ostentatious. Ooh, Noah said, "This is my weekly let's see if Jimmy can pronounce these words test," and I think I crushed it.
You crushed it, but I mean those are very what's it when a word sounds like it's spelled?
Phonetic.
Those are, no silent letters or anything. Come on, Noah, pick it up.
Well, they didn't like him, so that's what we're getting at here.
Long story short, yeah.
By comparison, the mature, experienced, American-born Donner's peaceful and charitable nature made him the group's first choice. You never want the just all-around nice guy to be your leader, though. He's a great number 2. Members of the party were comfortably well off by contemporaneous standards. And although they are referred to as pioneers, most of the party lacked skills and experience for traveling through mountains and arid land. The Donners seemed to be the only ones with some credible backcountry experience, and if the party was to take Hastings' cutoff, they would want their leadership. That adds up. But again, like, think of Miracle 1980, Herb Brooks, bad guy, leader. Patrick Craig, good guy, friend. That's like Herb Brooks' opening speech. I'm here to be your coach, not your friend. If you want one of those, takes it up with Craig.
Yeah. I'm seeing a couple. I like you. I'm seeing direct similarities to the Miracle Team and the Donner
Mm-hmm.
Party, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, we've just got to rest. I'm seeing less nice guy leadership lessons, and I'm seeing more just one of the larger recipes for disaster. It
Yeah,
didn't really matter who was the leader.
that's a good call. They're going to their death anyway because fucking crooked Bridgers.
But I mean, I do see it. The Donner Party is the U.S. team, and the mountains. These
Mountains
Soviets.
the Soviets are undefeated.
Yeah.
Yeah. On July 20th, the group neared Little Sandy River. What a great name. What a great name. Little Sandy River. I mean, how could you be scared of that place? Where the trail finally diverged, with the Oregon Trail continuing north and the other route going south to Fort Bridger and the Hastings Cutoff. Oh, so they did split up? Oh, no, so they just came to the fork in the road. The majority of the wagon group they were traveling with continued north, but with Reed hotly advocating to take the cutoff, a bit of an agreement was to come. The party would take the Hastings cutoff, but the Donners would take official leadership. Tamsen Donner, George's wife, was gloomy, sad, and dispirited at the thought of turning off the main trail on the advice of Hastings, whom she'd considered a selfish adventurer. Nonetheless, the Donner Party would make the fateful decision to go towards Fort Bridger while the rest continued on the trail. I mean, talk about a fork in the road, Jake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... Dude, I think I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt as much as I can. But, like, this is a crazy journey. And like someone said, they're not pioneers. They're just women and children and families. Like, why would you go the way no one's gone before? Like, let's just go the way that we know works. Seems like the women were saying the same thing back then.
And I think this ties into the leadership thing that you were talking about, Jimmy. And man, they were so gung ho to get Reed out of office that they kind of blinded themselves to the problem at hand. That is the impassable pass.
Classic
like, hey,
focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is, hey, guys, I mean, I'm sure the pass isn't that bad and we can get rid of this guy. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah, this is like the scene in Stranger Things now, where the kids are fighting internally and finally someone has to shout and just be like, hey, we're fighting that thing, not ourselves. But no one shouted that. No one shouted
Maybe the kids did, and it got lost in history.
Yeah. Well, it looks like they were like, hey, if we're going to go this Hastings cutoff, fine, Reed, we'll take your dumb cutoff, but you're not our leader. Donner is our leader. And Donner was like, cool, I'll be the leader. But then his wife, Tamsen, says, I don't want to do this, honey. And he's like, honey, I just got voted leader. This is big for me. So they go. You want to check out Fort Bridger? There's a picture of Fort Bridger here.
Nice pick.
Yeah, it looks
kind of what you picture.
It looks where the fuck is this? It looks like a fort. There you go. It's got the walls, it's got open areas. Nice fort.
Nice fort.
Okay. Wasatch? Am I saying that right?
I think it's Wasatch.
Wasatch?
I think so.
Wasatch Mountains and Great Salt Lake. Within days of turning south, the Donner Party found the terrain to be much more difficult than they described. Well, how about that? They encountered exceedingly difficult canyons where boulders had to be moved and walls cut off precariously to a river below. A route likely to break wagons. In his letter, Hastings had offered to guide the Donner Party around the more difficult areas, but he rode back only part way, indicating the general direction to follow and leaving directions in letters stuck to trees.
Man,
Their progress slowed to about 1.5 miles a day.
so I got a
Whoa.
I got a little jealous. Um, in the scene earlier when they come up to that quite literal fork in the road, I was like, man, that's a sensation that I'll never truly feel. Like when they came up to the Little Sandy River, they'd been talking about the Little Sandy River for a week, a month. And then when you finally roll up on it, you're like, damn, Little Sandy River. Um, that's got to be a pretty badass feeling. And then I was kind of thinking that with the letters to the trees, and then I was like, no, that kind of sucks. Like having to look around at each tree looking for a letter and thinking, like, what if we missed one?
I mean, that dude didn't put those up with any. Like, that was him just fucking ditching them because he knew he fucked up. So he was like, you know what? I'll just leave directions up ahead. You just find. I don't even think he put anything on trees. He just probably carved arrows.
Hmm.
I have some tough news. I think they changed the name of Little Sandy River to Big Sandy River.
Wow.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I mean, not for nothing. It feels like if there's a Little Sandy River, that there would be a big Sandy River as well.
I know, but I looked up like where they crossed. It's in Wyoming. A bunch of crop circles. There's a Valley Mart right by there and a Hitch and Stitch. So, but they said they changed the name to Big Sandy River. It's disappointing. Doesn't look that big, so I don't know. But yeah, this dude definitely bowed out, right? I mean, Hastings, bad guy.
It's not looking good so far.
Yeah. They dude, a half a mile, 1.5 miles a day is so slow.
Yeah.
It was August. So think about that. 4 laps around a track.
Walk that in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Mile and a half, 6 laps.
6 laps. I know they have like carts and all that. See, like, they would have to like empty the carts. They had to like cut down tree logs and then put all the tree logs like a slide for a little kid that's made out of the spinning tubes or whatever, spinning pipes. Like that's what they would have to make, and then they would send their carts down those when steep pass. They would cut down trees, lay them down, and then slide everything down to the people below. It's crazy. It was August 20th by the time that they reached a point in the mountains where they could look down and see the Great Salt Lake. It took almost another 2 weeks to travel out of the Wasatch Mountains. People that know how to pronounce that are probably getting so frustrated with me. The men began arguing, and doubts were expressed about the wisdom of those who had chosen this route, in particular, James Reed. Food and supplies began to run out for some of the less affluent families. It's tough here, Jake, is they have no idea what's ahead of them. So I'm sure at this point, if they're only going 1.5 miles a day, they can still turn back and be all right. But they think, hey, we came this far, we might just ride it out. But like they have so much more to go and winter coming.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, you're saying that with the hindsight. I mean, they're thinking, okay, we can see the Great Salt Lake. Maybe that was the hard part. We're low on supplies. Like, we got to finish this thing out. If you tell people we got to turn back.
Yeah, no, you're saying the same thing that I said. You're saying the same thing. They don't realize what's in front of them like we do because we know the terrain. But
well, I mean, we know the whole story that's coming. But I'm saying, I mean, the running out of food and supplies. I mean, there really is no option to go back at this point.
If Hastings stayed with them and let them know, like, hey, 1.5 miles a day with winter coming isn't enough. You guys need to turn back. And it'll take you 2 weeks, and you need to be at Fort Bridge right out the winter. Then we can go again. Like, I think if someone who had done the path was there, they could have done it. But because they had no guide anymore, they had no idea what lay ahead. Scary part. From the peak of the last mountain they had to traverse in the Wasatch Range, They saw ahead of them a dry, barren plain, perfectly flat and covered with white salt, larger than the one they had just crossed, and one of the most inhospitable places on earth. Their oxen were already fatigued, and their water was nearly gone. 9 of Reed's 10 oxen broke free, crazed with thirst, and bolted off into the desert. Ooh, that's sad. Many other families' cattle and horses had also gone missing. The rigors of the journey resulted in irreparable damage to some of the wagons, but no human lives had been lost. Instead of the promised 2-day journey over 40 miles, they journeyed across the 80 miles of the Great Salt Lake Desert took 6. None of the party had any remaining faith in the Hastings cutoff as they recovered at the springs on the other side of the desert. So it's cool because we've been to the Great Salt Lakes. Imagine seeing those. I mean, you see it in a car and it's kind of cool at first and then it gets boring, but man, like having to cross that, there's no shade. There's literally nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a mental mind fuck if you're jumping into where these people were at. Like you almost need that other stuff to look at to get through. And yeah, I mean, the oxen thing is one of the saddest, like crazy sad. Well, story gets sadder, I guess. But yeah, I don't. What I don't get is 9 out of the 10 oxen broke free. I mean, were the oxen pulling stuff? Like, what happens then?
Yeah, I think they'd have to ditch that or have to pull it themselves. Like horses too. Like they were being used. I think those things broke free at night, like when they were like supposed to just be hanging out there, but they were so thirsty and they just ran away. For anyone that doesn't know what the salt flats look like, here's some images, and it's just like it looks like snow, and it just goes on forever. A lot of car commercials get shot in these places, but yeah, that would be very scary to come up upon. They have no faith. They're mad at Reed, and then here we go. By now, it was well into October, and the party was gravely concerned with the arrival of winter. Internal strife didn't make things any better. 2 wagons in the remaining group became tangled, and John Snyder angrily beat the ox of Reed's hired teamster, Milt Elliott. Damn. When Reed intervened, Snyder turned the whip on him. Reed retaliated by fatally plunging a knife under Snyder's collarbone. Snyder had been seen to hit James Reed, and some claimed he had also hit Margaret Reed. But Snyder had been popular, and Reed was not. One of the Donners suggested that Reed should be hanged, but an eventual compromise allowed him to leave the camp without his family, who were to be taken care of by the others. Reed departed alone the next morning, unarmed, but his stepdaughter, Virginia, rode ahead and secretly provided him with a rifle and food. Whoa.
Thanks, Virginia.
That's huge for James Reed. Like, sucks that he has to leave his family behind. A lot. That sucks a lot.
Yeah.
Also doesn't really make sense. Like, what's he going to do? Just walk 100 miles ahead of the wagon and then, like, catch up with them when they're there?
Just get the hell out of here. Yeah, this is good, and this is the paragraph you circle as the like the point in the movie when the movie's going on and you think you know the movie kind of, and it's like, yeah, this journey is wild, and then you start to realize like, oh, the journey's not the movie at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what? He just stabbed that guy, and we're out of supplies, and we're in the middle of the mountains. Like we just started.
I mean, and like the punishment, like he can't be with the wagon train anymore. Like at the time, that's a death sentence. I mean, you're in the salt flats. And you just no food, no weapon, nothing. Thank God for his daughter Virginia.
I think it was a little little under the table. Like, okay, yeah, you're gonna be on yourself. We're not giving him a gun. Virginia, go give him a gun, but like, get out of here.
I like that. If I was Reed, I think I'd just hide behind like something, like lay on the ground so they can't see me and all white or something, and then just wait for them to pass and then just trail them. And at night, like run up, what's up, Virginia? Got any food? And then run back 100 feet back or something like that.
You've got James Reed putting on his all white outfit.
Just like taking the salt, rubbing it on his clothes or face. I don't know. Disguising himself somewhere. And like hanging around the wagon trail is all I'm getting at.
Okay.
Coming back and forth. The trials that the Donner Party had so far endured resulted in splintered groups, each looking out for themselves and distrustful of the others. To relieve the animals' load, everyone was expected to walk. Louis Kessberg, head of one of the families that joined at Fort Bridger, ejected 70-year-old Hard Coop from his wagon, telling the elderly man that he had to walk or die. A few days later, Hard Coop sat next to a stream, his feet so swollen they had split open. He was not seen again. Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, you guys thought retirement homes were nasty. How about literally kicking them to a pond and saying, die?
Damn, man. Like the fucking animals could handle 170-year-old. Jesus Christ. Fuck Louis Kessberg. With grass in short supply, the cattle spread out more, which allowed Paiutes, Native Americans, to steal 18 more during one evening. Oh, that sucks. Several mornings later, they shot another 21. So far, the company had lost nearly 100 oxen and cattle, and their rations were almost completely depleted. I think the Native Americans were just like watching this from a distance, like they're like up on a peak, like, look at these idiots. Why would they go this route? And at that point, I don't even know if the Indians stole the oxen, more so rescued them.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I guess it depends what they did with them after. And I think they like honored them and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a win. Or, again, think about who's telling the historical story here. Maybe this is just, big media back then trying to blame part of this on the Native Americans.
That's what I agree with you. I think they did an honorable thing, saving the oxen. Maybe they didn't steal them at all and all our oxen ran away. Who knows?
Exactly.
So now they come up to Donner Pass. Faced with one last push over mountains that were described as much worse than the Wasatch, the ragtag company had to decide whether to forge ahead. That's what I'm saying. Like the Salt Lake ones in Utah. Like this is what Lewis and Clark did too. Like, you think that's something? Wait till you get to fucking Tahoe and shit. So that's why I'm saying if that dude, the crook Hastings, was there, like, he would be able to let him know. Like, hey, I know you think these mountains were hard, but you got a desert and then you got 10 times harder mountains. So maybe let's just chill for the winter. But no one told him that.
Yeah, when I first, because again, that's my first thought process when we started reading this was, what timeline are we talking? And when I saw the expedition started in April, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. They're hitting the mountains in the summer. Yeah, I get it. I'm hip. And then, everything's going terrible. Somebody kills someone. Okay, kind of normal expedition stuff. When I read the word October, I was like, that's got to be your hard cut. Like, you guys need to set up a fake city for a winter and try to survive, because this ain't happening.
Yeah, exactly. However, as the families made a push over a massive, nearly vertical slope, snow would begin to fall. As they reached Truckee Lake, now known as Donner Lake. That's where we had 4th of July. I don't think you came, but Proch came out, had a lot of fun. 5 to 10, and Katie's family lives in Truckee, so Katie spent a lot of summers in Truckee. 5 to 10 foot snow drifts were impeding the group's progress. To make things worse, the families were traveling separately, with some separated by nearly 5 miles, meaning any issue with the wagons had to be solved individually. Eventually, everyone congregated at Truckee Lake at a number of old cabins that had been built 2 years earlier by a group of pioneers. The Donner family tried to continue to push onward, but the building snowdrifts made travel impossible. What? They found cabins?
Well, I think, and again, I think this is us not having the best brain screwed on our heads, because when you're thinking about the formula and everything else that's going awry, like finding cabins seems like a win, but it's actually the end.
Yeah. So,
Because there's no in or out, there's no food, and it's like, because I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, nice, couple cabins, this is going to be huge for the gang, and then you're like, oh,
yeah, this
it's
is
a
our
trap.
this is our final paragraph of part 1. Thus, here at a lake high in the mountains around Lake Tahoe, with little to no provisions left, the 60 members of the Donner Party slowly came to a realization they were stuck here to survive the winter. That's part 1. Part 2 will be next week, and I mean, I'm into it. You want to see?
I mean, it's an old timer, and there's a sick. I don't know, man. There's just so many sick societal things that like it's a growth of the society, but it's also like kind of disgusting. I'm picturing, our friends that post Instagram stories at Lake Tahoe, and it's like snowed in at Tahoe, couldn't be better. And it's like, oh, yeah. Well, I guess we've come a long way in 150 years, but it's also, I don't know. Humans are a sick fucking species.
That's Lake Donner, Truckee Lake. So we took a boat out on there, 4th of July one summer. It was rainy, but yeah, it's nice. I mean, Lake Tahoe's a nice area, and yeah, being snowed in, much different. You almost got to befriend some Indians. So next week we will come back and we will get into what happened when they were stuck in the mountains and don't bring full stomachs, I guess. I'm excited for it.